Dallas Mavericks, OKC Thunder. I'm going to start off with some Luka Doncic stuff. And this was something that I've said for a couple months now. Luka, as great as he is, and we do know that he is really, really great. Like, he is first ballot, like Hall of Famer level great. He is, he's like a top 15, top 20, like talented player ever, like level. That's the type of ceiling that he is, as we know. Everyone knows that he's on a bum knee. Everyone knows that amongst, the high volume, scoring guys in the league, it's like him, maybe Shai Gilgeous. There's a couple guys up there when it comes to the highest percentage of unassisted baskets in the league. Luka Doncic is up there. We obviously understand he's unguardable. He can really pick his spot. His pace is impeccable. He can get to really any spot he wants. There isn't a shot he can't hit or isn't comfortable hitting. He can play you in different ways. He can play the old man game. He can be the playmaker. He can, kind of like mirror what James Harden does, with his pace and floor raising guys on his team, putting them in the right spots, and just being an impactful passer. We've seen that card from him. We've also seen, the Luka Doncic that can just take 15 step back threes in a game and hit 10, 11 of them. We've seen that type of Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, it's been kind of understated. He's been battling some lower extremity injuries, calf, knee, foot, stuff like that. I think that's just been the wear and tear and the dependency on him to be great every night. I think it's just wearing on him a little bit. But right now, it's as worse as it's ever been. Like, he literally, it's not just the fact that he's dinged up, like his knee is kind of jacked up, but it's the fact that he has one of the best perimeter defenders, as he stated also recently, in Lu Dort. Lu Dort is similar in size, similar in mass. Like, he's just one of those, he's one of the biggest wings in the league when you talk about, like, size. I wasn't really impressed with, the Mavericks' offensive game plan of just continuing to rely on Luka on that type of level when you have a guy in Kyrie Irving who has been spectacular this entire playoffs, especially in the second half, just killing everyone with his 3-level scoring prowess. I just feel like the Mavs should lean on Kyrie a little bit more. I've always been one to say that the offense just flows a little bit smoother when he has the ball in his hands. It's just a lot more fluid. You guys are cutting, the ball is zipping faster. It's not as predictable. But with Luka, like, he's going to dribble 16, 17 seconds out of the shot clock if he doesn't find a shot that he likes. And ultimately, if he doesn't, then he relies on usually a 24, 23-foot three-point shot. One of the hardest shots to hit in the league, especially, like I said, unassisted. He's a guy that works extremely hard for his buckets. I'd like to see a lot more inverted pick and rolls with him and Kyrie. Try and get Luka into a rhythm early on. Try and get him onto these smaller defenders. I mean, Luka's huge. I know his knee is holding him back a little bit, but he's still able to put the ball in the basket. If you get him on some inverted pick and rolls, get him on some switches onto some smaller guys like Josh Giddey, Isaiah Joe, even Shai Gilgeous. You got to make Shai Gilgeous work on the other end too, even though he's a good defender himself. But you want to make these guys work on the other end just like they're trying to make you work. And I feel like because of a guy that's not known for his dynamic first step or his speed or his acceleration, but a guy that's still able to get to his steps throughout the game, if you get him in those situations where he's able to post up, I feel like it opens up the floor for cutters, opens up the floor for, some Kyrie catch and shoot 3-point opportunities. PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., those guys aren't like prolific shooters, but if they're able to get into the lane, Luka is one of the most selfless passers in the league, one of the most gifted passers in the league. He's gonna find the rock for you. Luka is shooting 24% from 3 on 10 attempts. He was shooting 38 on, I believe, 8 attempts in the regular season, which was a career high. So, we can see that the knee is clearly impacting him. I don't know why they waited till the second half to finally put the ball in Kyrie's hands. And that was one of my only worries, is I knew OKC, who's been, a top 5 offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating team all year. Like I said about Minnesota, they are what they are. And I just feel like, them making Luka and Kyrie work on the perimeter, that's just a game that, you have to play back. You have to give them a taste of their own medicine, because I'm not gonna lie to you, the non-Luka, non-Kyrie lineups, like those guys aren't able to take, 5, 6, 7 minute stretches where they're able to sit out and, there's not a fall off in the offense. They sadly have to be out there. And I just feel like Jason Kidd could do just a little bit of altering in the offensive game plan in terms of, who should dictate, the game possession to possession when the game starts. I just feel like Kyrie just needs more touches. You gave him $133 million. He had a phenomenal year, even with the injuries. He's a guy just like Donovan Mitchell. Kind of got robbed by the All NBA 65 game rule, but he played great. He was a tick under 50, 40, 90, literally. I think he was literally shot like 49.2%. He was literally 0.7 away from 50, 40, 90 in his 10th or 11th season. That would have been the second time he's, shot at that mark. He's been phenomenal since the All-Star break. He's been healthy and he's been available. That remarkable shot he hit against Denver, that left-handed floater that we talked about a couple months ago. I just feel like you need to integrate him into the offense more, because that's going to get him into a rhythm early on. That's going to put pressure on OKC, because you weren't putting enough pressure on them in the first half last game. The game was just too slow, and ultimately it's going to help Luka. And the main goal is to alleviate Luka of as much pressure as you can. And I feel like there's no other guy other than Kyrie. Personally, I don't think that we can expect, the Dallas role guys like Josh Green, PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr. You can't ask those guys to now initiate stuff in the half court. That hasn't really been their game. They've actually been molding their games and their roles on the strengths of Kyrie and Luka and what they can do best, which is scoring the ball and playmaking for others. And those guys are being asked to defend, you know what I mean, at a certain level. Those guys are being thrown at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, being thrown at Jalen Williams. And then, you're asking a guy like Derek Lively Jr., who is being asked to guard Chet Holmgren, who is a gifted offensive talent and scorer. He's kind of the X factor in this series for OKC because of all the sorts of different lineups you can play with him, where you can put him on the court. He's a legit shot blocker, and he stretches the floor immensely for them. And he opens up the lanes for guys like Shai and J-Dub to get to the rack. And obviously, they're looking at film. They're looking at, the strengths and weaknesses of OKC and how they can expose them. But I just feel like on offense specifically, I think you do need to at least, put the ball in Kyrie's hands a little bit earlier, just so the whole team can get a rhythm, because he will get the whole team in a rhythm if Luka isn't able to. And we obviously know Luka is compromised right now. He's a little handicapped. This is not the MVP version of Luka right now. And we have a decent amount of sample size to state that. Like I said, the fall off from three is drastic. And the problem is with that, it's not only the fact that he's missing his threes, but the threes that he's taking are literally one of the hardest shots in basketball. It's the off the dribble 3-point shot, step back, sidestep, whatever you want to call it, pull up, and he's not hitting them. And not only is he not hitting them, it puts a wrench in your offense because other guys aren't moving around. This is a one-on-one 3-point take, and he takes a ton of them. He is a heavy volume, off the dribble, isolation 3-point taker. He takes a lot. He does make a lot, but right now he's missing a lot. And when you have possessions like that, that's going to throw a wrench in your offensive game plan. And when you miss threes like that, what does that do? That turns into fast break points. OKC is younger than the Mavs. They have tremendous athletes. They have a guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is arguably the best driver of the basketball right now in this league, a guy that lives at the free throw line. He knows how to manipulate defenders. He knows how to initiate contact and get the call. So, with that being said, what I'm thinking about is listen, if Luka is going to take those type of shots, you're just making it a lot harder on yourself, to get out of those holes. And, that's why ultimately they couldn't get out of it in game one. And, I know there's a bunch of stuff they're going to look at and reassess, but the degree of difficulty is slightly, it's harder just because this team is younger. They're deeper than the Clippers. They're younger than the Clippers. They're a better defending team than the Clippers. I think we can say that too. I hate to say it, but the Maxi Kleber injury is also not helping either. That's a guy that you could have thrown on Chet. That's a guy that, just like Chet, stretches the floor, opens up the lane exponentially for guys like Luka, Kyrie, Derrick Jones Jr. to get into the lane. He's a catch and shoot guy. So his injury, it's definitely hurting them. It's definitely hurting them big time, because now it's putting a lot of tax on Gafford and Derek Lively to get to the perimeter and guard Chet on those switches. And as you know, OKC has a bunch of athletes, guys like Giddey who want to get to the rim, guys like Shai, guys like J-Dub, Aaron Wiggins. You got all these athletes. You're going to have to run with them, and I don't know if the Mavs want to play that brand of basketball, running up and down. It's been a physical playoffs. I'm not going to have a blind eye to the OKC Thunder. They've been one of the best teams in the league, like hands down, in every facet. Offense, defense. They have a superstar level player. They can get in transition. They can shoot. So yeah, they're deep. They're deep and they're young. Those are all dangerous combinations you want to put together. And it's funny, everyone is talking about Minnesota and Ant and all this, but I just see a literal mirror reflection in OKC. You got Shai, you got Giddey, you got Chet, you got J-Dub. You got a young team, a team that's up and rising in a small market. Obviously, those teams are in the same division, so they've seen a bunch of each other. They're very familiar with each other. I think OKC is just as much of a title threat as Minnesota. I just see it. I know everyone's talking about, Anthony Edwards faced the league. Like, man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander made a first-team All-NBA last season. I know they didn't crack the playoffs, but they also eliminated the Pelicans in the play-in last season. And then they came into this season with a Chet. That's a huge piece. And they've been running it up. You know what I mean? First seed in the West. It's kind of even sad that Shai didn't even get MVP. I don't want to turn a blind eye to OKC. I had OKC losing to the Mavs in 7. They're up 1-0, but I expect the series to go back and forth. This series is my favorite series to watch. Obviously, I'm going to watch the Celtics as much as I can. Well, every game, obviously. But I'm not as worried about us taking care of the Cavaliers as I am about this Mavs Thunder series. I think this Mavs Thunder series has just a bunch of potential to be one of the best series we've seen in the past couple of years.